Wake up.
Wake
Good
up.
morning. It's great to see you all here today as we are talking about how to leave the past behind. Daniel, how are you doing today?
I am doing great.
Great. That's awesome. And where in the world are you? Daniel's a world traveler.
I am currently in Orlando with my beautiful family and spending time with my amazing mama and papa. And it's just been really nice. It's always really nice to be home and to touch base, right? To have like that cornerstone. So
Hmm.
it's been great. And today I'm traveling again. We're traveling to West Palm to see our dear friend Becky. And then we'll go
That's
to Miami.
amazing.
I know. And then we'll go to Miami for a week and then we're heading to Thailand. So
That's incredible.
yeah, exactly.
Wow. How's it getting better than that? Well,
How
big
does
shout
it?
out to Becky, who really helps make this show go.
Yeah,
This is, you
absolutely.
can tell we have a new design here. If you're watching us live um, on Facebook or YouTube, you can always watch these live every Wednesday and on Instagram here. Hi, Irina.
Hi, Irina.
And also, we're in season 2 now. So if you haven't subscribed to this episode yet, what are you waiting for? Just go on wherever you listen to podcasts, just click the little subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, click subscribe there. That really helps get this word out and so that we can share this medicine
Yeah, just
with
click the little
everyone.
subscribe button. That's all it takes. Just click.
And leaving a comment is one of the best ways to support lives. So if you ever watching something that you love, leave a comment below. And if there's something in your past that you're ready to leave behind, let's talk about it today.
Let's
I
do it.
invite you to leave a comment, ask any questions along the way. Daniel, what you've been talking about the past some. Today's happy is Passover.
Yeah, today's Passover.
So
Tonight is Passover.
tonight is Passover tonight.
Yeah, and it's also, it's also the full moon tonight too, guys. The full moon in the sign of Libra, which actually always corresponds to Passover. Okay,
Hmm.
so and it's I've been talking about this energy a lot, Ben, as you know, like in my morning sessions, the daily download, and it's interesting too because the past, Passover is all about letting go of the past. It's all about leaving that which we call Egypt, and according to Kabbalah, Egypt is a metaphor, right? Egypt is a metaphor for our negativity. It's a metaphor for our ego. And so, what traits and aspects has our ego been controlling us with? That if we act to create outside of it, right, and really leave it behind, we have the possibility to, as they say in Kabbalah, to go to the promised land, right? And so that's the energy of going through that Red Sea in our life. That Red Sea is the place where we feel stuck, where we feel like it's impossible, where we feel like nothing will ever happen, and we move forward and we do it. Hi, Bren. How are you, sweetie? I love you so much. Bren asks a beautiful question here, Ben. She says, "Can you talk about letting go?" Right?
Yeah. And I want to,
And
well, I wanted to speak to what you said before you answered that question too. Like,
yeah,
and say
of course.
happy Passover is if everyone who's celebrating clearing these things out, making that time for memories and to honor the past and let go of the past.
Yeah.
I really love that. And so I just want to say that and honor everyone here. And yes, I've read. So Daniel, how would you we want to talk about letting go. What would you say about letting go? Like what are some of the ways that you practice letting go?
I think it's something that's really been showing up a lot lately for me. The Buddhists also talk about the energy of attachment, right? As
Mm,
attachment as the biggest sin, right? That there is, right? And attachment is that energy. Anytime when we say, "Oh, I can't live without that. I can't live without that person. I can't live without that object. I can't live without that." And that is the energy that you're giving all your power away over to something else. Okay. And so one of the practices that I've been doing this month on my own in my active meditations is asking myself, what would it be like if I didn't have that anymore? Right? Like I am so blessed. Like I find myself even more connected to my partner every day. Like this is like amazing. Guillermo and I have become so close. And,
Mm.
I had this feeling of like, I had this one moment where I was like, oh my God, I don't want to, what would happen if I lost him? I don't want to lose him. And I was like, wait a minute, where is that coming from? Right. And then I started to dig on it and I started to dig on it and I started to dig on it. And you look at how you can value what you have, but without presuming the future of what it is or that it will even be there, right? So the honoring and the acknowledgement of what is and being so grateful for it, and then the willingness to see that no matter what happens, that you're going to be okay. Now, it shows up for most of us, a lot of us, in the form of money, right, Ben? How
Mm.
many times have we worked so hard, maybe made a lot of money, and we were like,
Hmm.
"Oh my God." And then the bills are paid, you have a little fun, and then there's no more money, and you're like, "Ah," right? "Oh my
Yeah.
God, what am I gonna do?" And as I was digging on myself and removing all these layers of attachment, I realized that at the end of the day, guess what we have that nothing and no one can ever take away from us? It's choice. And we have choice
Mm.
and we have creation, right? Because we are all that energy. And that's what I
Wow.
wanted to kind of talk about in terms of leaving the past behind, right?
Could I
We
highlight some of those things? Because you
yeah,
you put a lot in there for us that for some people, I want to just slow it down a little bit
yeah,
because there's a lot of incredible value that you provided us there. So there was a willingness aspect,
yeah,
there was a choice, there was choosing, celebrating, like being so you said so grateful about this now,
yeah,
um, and then uh, also attachment.
yeah.
And attachment for me is one of the things that I felt equaled safety. So I really struggled with attachment until I was introduced to Buddhism, thank God. And I remember saying, I feel like I'm always in transition. I just can't like ground or attach on anything. And it was, well, that's life. And I used to struggle with that in relationships, like really holding on to
Yeah.
try to save them, as if they were always going to leave. And I realized I was in the scarcity mindset for probably the first 20 years of my life, at least probably 25 or even 30, before I started waking up. And it was in a 12-step program where I first heard the promises. And I was actually reading this in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill Wilson writes about the promises. There's the promises and the bedevilment. So if you're actually practicing the steps in your life, if you're actually keeping these ideals alive in your life, the promises are there. And if you're not practicing them, mostly you can count on having these bedevilments, these things that you struggle with, right? And so one of the promises was, and I wanted to talk about this with you and leaving the past behind, that came up for me was, we'll no longer wish to will no longer regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it.
I love
And
that.
we'll see how our experience can benefit others.
Right.
So, we want to release these things from the past, but as we're in dude school right now, we're on the week of sex and intimacy. We're spending 2 weeks on this. Actually, the guys requested more time because they said we've never gotten to talk about this with anyone, let alone our friends, like this level of truth and honesty around sex and intimacy or any
Beautiful.
tools. And a lot of what comes up for, I know, for men, I'm sure many of us, when is carrying shame from our past, from the things we wish we had done, we wish we had done differently. And I've found in all of this, what I'm getting to is that sharing these things actually allows you to release them, actually
Yes,
allows you to let go of the past.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's healing in and of itself because you also what I always found, and it's so beautiful that you have this experience with the guys in dude school because when you actually have the courage or the bravery, if you will, to talk about the past, then you're also giving other people the permission to talk about the past too, right? How many times have we been in a situation where somebody said something and you were like, oh my God, I have that feeling too, or I have that fear, or I have that experience. And then you feel empowered to talk about it, right? So remember how you were empowered by somebody else's ability to be so vulnerable and to share their past, and acknowledge that you could also be the source of that for somebody else, right? And what would it take for you to be that healer? That is the healer. To me, that is a healer. A healer is that person that gives other people the permission to actually heal themselves by being in that space of being vulnerable, you know? And and it's beautiful. It's an acknowledgement. You're right, Ben. We want to really acknowledge the past. I'm asking a lot. I find myself asking a lot, how much of my future am I creating from my past, though? Right? How often do we say, I want to do this, but this happened to me in the past, right?
That's a great question.
Yeah. And then I look at that and I go, well, wait a minute. That version of me, that version of me was the version of me 10 years ago, sometimes 20, 30 years ago. Do I still have that fear? Do I still have that point of view? And then I look and I say, actually, maybe I do, maybe I don't. But the acknowledgement of it says, hey, hey, you know what? I can move forward. I can choose something else. Let's see what happens. You know? And I may still have that fear, or I may still have that blockage. And that's also okay, because it's not light for you, right?
This is all landing. This is great, Daniel. So with money, like I'd love to know, like, or I'm trying to think of some specific examples we can talk about here. So what are some
Okay.
places actually where you have struggled with letting go, and what has made the difference for you? I know for me, it's been like relationships, and uh, eventually what's made the difference is starting to choose me to really invest time back in myself
Yeah.
and the people I love. And that actually starts to allow my nervous system to know that I'm safe and supported so that I can let go of those people. But that's something that was always very challenging for me. Like why to let someone go, even if you're breaking up, like, couldn't we stay friends at some point? And I always had
Yeah.
this attachment to, like, why would we cut people out of our life who we love, even if we've decided, like, hey, this relationship, may not serve me romantically. And that was part of my work. I think it was probably the level of attachment I had that forced some of these people to cut me out of their lives because I
Yes.
wouldn't let go. Right. And that was a really powerful lesson, to get, and then to start to finally turn all of that chasing towards myself.
Yeah. And
And I
how
think
many of
I
those
think of recovery
relationships?
because that's the first time in my life when I really chose a relationship with myself.
Right.
Like, what am I
How
putting
many?
in my body? How am I treating myself that it doesn't work or doesn't have integrity? And I was literally treating myself like garbage. So that's, what I was putting in my body, how I was talking to
Right.
myself. So I couldn't have a loving relationship. I couldn't let go of the past. I needed other people. That's how it felt until I learned to love myself.
Yeah. You know what you're reminding me of too is that how many times are we in relationship, and we're in relationship and we keep holding on, waiting for it to change, right? We keep
Mm,
waiting for the other person to change, and oftentimes we do so without actually working on ourselves. Okay. And I mean, when I'm the same way, Ben. Like, what I always want to, like, oh, look at what we've created. This is great. Let's still be friends. The truth of the matter is that that energy is, maybe it's time for that energy to move on. You know what I mean? Maybe it's time for that energy to take a different shape and a different form, and it's actually okay. It's actually okay to let the past just be the past, and acknowledge what you've learned from it. But like you said, I love that you said so beautifully, to love yourself and to work on yourself and to be the space for yourself, you know? And I think we're so busy trying to fix other people, especially those that we're holding on so close to. We're so busy trying to fix other people that we don't actually recognize that the true change is what happens when we work on ourselves. When we really, really work on ourselves, then we grow and we expand out of having the need to fix or change something else. Because you know what? When you work on yourself, everything around you changes too, all the time. So let me ask you, I just want to ask you really quickly, like, as you went through those experiences in your life and as you began to actually connect with who you really, really were, what were some of the like big aha moments? What were some of your like wake up moments in working, focusing the energy on working on you instead of the relationship or trying to fix somebody else? What was
You
that?
mean like waking up to my potential? Like waking
I
up to the
do.
potential of the universe?
I
Like wake
totally
up
do, brother.
Wednesdays?
Wake up
Um,
Wednesdays, dude.
that's such a great question, Daniel. What stands out for me right now, it's interesting, this energy is so present, is the day I went to my first AA meeting, when I
Yeah.
finally said, like, I'm not going to drink anymore, but I did anyway.
Yeah.
And then I knew there was someone to call, and I called them, and I said, I think I need to go to a meeting. And it was such a, I mean, the story's incredible, because I was like dog sitting for this guy who was like in China, and he's American, but you know, he lived in the West Village, and he I'd asked him if I could help myself to a drink at his bar in his apartment, and I'd already helped myself. But that's sort of how I rolled back then. That was part of my, when I was in active alcoholism, like the sneaky behavior, I really was just part of my life. And he actually encouraged, he goes, yeah, help yourself. I've actually been like, I don't drink. I haven't drank for 25 years. And I was trying not to drink that night. I had like tea in the microwave at that point. And I decided to cut out cannabis in my life. I actually couldn't stop using substances at that point. Like, I think I was down to like cannabis, and I couldn't stop that, and that was scaring me. Like, I can't even stop smoking. And so this big aha moment was when that man said, like, help yourself, and I don't even drink. And it was like such a juxtaposition. Like,
Wow.
talk about, he had just let go of a partner, like to let go of his past. He had this, and he's such solid sobriety that well, I don't know, I don't like alcohol in my house anyway, but he did, and to help other people. But I think that moment, and then the moment when I went into that meeting and I had all these people that just like put their hands on my shoulders, and I didn't have to say anything. I just got to cry and be held, and like all these people around me got it, because I realized no one's like, when I wake up, I want to get sober and go to AA.
Right.
Like, we don't usually choose it. We get like, surrender. We get like beaten to our knees, like forced to surrender at some point. It really is about willingness. And I think
Yeah.
that's when I started to see, oh, and one other moment. I'm so glad you asked me this question. I was in I was in a landmark program, and I was working on, I think it was their advanced course, and there was a fear exercise, like releasing fear. And I had been the Dell dude, not too long after that, and it was still pretty fresh, and 9/11 was fresh for me. For those of you who don't know, I lived in 9/11 before, during, and after that time. That was my first adult apartment with my Dell money. And this coach pulled me aside because I couldn't stop releasing this programmed narrative loop about how I'm a victim of 9/11. That was like, hi, I'm Ben Curtis, I'm a victim of 9/11. It was like a scarlet
Sure.
badge I wore.
Yeah.
And this coach, I don't remember what it was, what they saw or the conversation, but they gave me a chance. They said, do you actually really want to let this go? And I said, yeah, I really do. And they like held up this pencil, and they were like, here it is. Here's all that crap. Are you ready? And then they dropped it and like watched it hit the ground. I'm like, did you let go of it yet?
So powerful.
And I was like, no. They're like, okay, we're going to do it again. Here's all that shit. And I think on the third time, something went boom, and I dropped it. It was like I gave myself permission. And in that moment, I saw that I'd been choosing suffering my whole life. Like, I have pain. It's always been as a part of the human experience, but I had actually been really choosing my own victimization and suffering. And in that moment, I saw that I could set myself free. And it was going to take work, But that was like the first aha moment that I could let this go. And so, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things of relationships. I mean, this is how deeply seated it is in my subconscious. Like, I forget that letting go of September 11th was one of the most challenging things. I mean, I would dream about it and my body
Right.
just, yeah, it was traumatic. So it took a long time to learn to, like, and the experience is, if I let this go, then I'm going to lose some part of myself, because some part of myself went through that trauma. So I have to remember what it was like to have been through that trauma. And so when I would start to get numb to it, I try to replay it. I try to like feel through it again. And I would get
Correct.
scared that I was
Correct.
losing a part of myself or reality. But all that was happening was I was healing,
Absolutely.
so I actually had an opportunity. Letting go didn't mean I was like, it was like moving on meant, like, I don't know what it meant, but it didn't have a good feeling. Like, if I was to move on from it, that it was to, like, to have not given it the value it deserved or the respect it deserved. And I think I felt that way in relationships too, to just like stop talking to someone after like we spent years together. Like, that just seems like disrespectful. Like, it just, I love them. So why would I just like let go of something that I cared so much of, that's so important to me? And and I always hear your voice now, like Gary Douglas, uh founder of Access Consciousness, says, if we let go, we're 70%, or we can receive 70% more of what we're actually looking for. So I try to
Yeah.
remember, like, the guy in of Mice and Men, Lenny, or like just like the physical thing. If you just put your hands together, or you hold on like this, you can feel the energy of what that's like. So if everyone's at home, I invite you to try to just like put your arms around you and kind of like tighten up and feel that energy, and then open your arms up out, and then feel
Yeah.
that energy. Right. So when you open your arms, suddenly you can receive more. That's like the metaphor of that quote to me, is like,
So
oh, if I
expansive.
just open my arms,
Yeah.
like, oh, suddenly I can receive a hug. I can receive everything that I've been
Yeah.
trying to ward off because of safety. Because I think, like, that nervous system, that whatever happened that told us it's not safe.
Right. There's a great, first of all, thank you for that amazing story. That was
Yeah.
absolutely so identifiable, because I saw all those times in my life that I was actually choosing to hold on to my wounds too, right? Because we allow our wounds to define us. There's a couple things
Mm.
I want to speak on that. Number one is that, it's so interesting we're having this conversation, because there's what's called a dwarf planet called Chiron. Okay. We don't know so much about Chiron yet, but the astrologers call Chiron the planet of the wounded warrior, right? It's the energy that carries around all of the scars as battle scars, as badges of honor, right?
Mm. Wow.
And what's interesting is that
What
for
is
a
this planet called?
Chiron, Chiron, Chiron.
The planet of the wounded warrior.
Yeah, it's the
It's
energy of it is the
powerful.
wounded warrior, right? And so what's so amazing is that Chiron has a huge orbit, like like many, many, many years, like 20, more than 20 years. And Chiron has actually been in the sign of Pisces, which is the sign of being a victim. So Pisces loves their wounds, right? They love their wounds. They're like, oh, but I've been through this and I've been through that. Oh, look at me. Oh, all right. Now, guess what? Probably for one of very few times in our lifetime, Chiron is actually going to shift its planetary placement. And on Saturday, April 8th, it moves into the sign of Aries. When Chiron will move into Aries, Aries has no patience for that. Okay. Aries says, you know what? Get over your wounds, wrap it up, and let's go. Right. I love this energy. And Ben, what you're talking about is exactly what we're going to be experiencing. We're going to be experiencing this process where we go, oh, I have a wound. What did I learn from it? Okay, let's go. Let's get over it. Right. Or let's move forward from it instead of being
Mm.
defined by it. And so it's a blessing to have these astrological influences that are actually coming in and happening for us. And I thank you for that story, because I think so many of us can relate. So many of us can relate by saying, well, I went through that divorce, or I went through that cancer, or I went through that thing, and I am big and bold and strong and powerful, and I made it, and I'm a survivor, because we as a species want to survive. So we hold on to those moments as definitions for how we can prove how powerful we are. But we don't really even need that, right? We are amazing, and we are powerful, and we are strong. And we will always, always see outside of that when we truly, truly say, hey, you know what? This is the lesson that I learned. Wow, that was a powerful experience. Thank you. And we let go. The quicker we let go, the more opportunities we're going to have to create more memorable experiences to change that. So that's one thing. The other thing I have to share with you is, many, many years ago, I was a part of the,
I love that, by the way. I've never heard of this planet. I'm just like, I wrote it down because I'm like, my mind's blown. This is
yeah.
incredible.
And by
Yeah,
the way, you
this is
guys,
great.
if those of you are listening, you could Google it. You can Google Chiron in Aries, and it'll give you the whole lowdown of what to expect. Um, so, many, many years ago, like 20 some odd, almost 20 years ago, I had the blessing of instituting a children's program called Spirituality for Kids. And in the class, in the level
Mm,
2, we called it level 2 is called like cause and effect. Basically, it was basically teaching about karma, right? And we used to read this story, Ben, called the carrot seed, and it's very popular in America, I think, for children. And in the carrot seed, it's this little boy, and he goes, I want to plant a carrot, right? And so he takes the seed and he goes into the garden and he plants the carrot, and he does all of the work, and he does all of the work and all of the work and all of the work, and he plants the seed and he waters it and whatever, and he's so excited, and he just stands there, or he sits there looking over the carrot, waiting for it to grow, right? And he's
that's
like, I want this
adorable.
carrot to grow. You can see it, right? This little boy, he's like,
Yeah.
I want this carrot to grow. I want this carrot to grow. And after days and days and days, there's nothing is happening. Finally, he gets really discouraged, right? And he gets discouraged and he goes inside. And he says, oh, mom, my carrot didn't grow. I don't know. La, 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 la. And he mopes around for a few days, maybe even a few weeks. But finally, time comes in and he switches his awareness to something else and whatever. And all of a sudden, his mom says, hey, Bobby, come look in the backyard. And he looks in the backyard and there's a giant stalk coming out of the ground. And he goes, oh my God, it's my carrot. Right? And what we learn from this story, and he goes, and in the story, he pulls out the carrot, and it's this giant carrot, and he's like, oh my God. Right? And the moral of the story is you get what you ask for when you let go of what you think and how and the time that you think it has to be. I always used to add a little extra piece to that story that, when he was hovered over it, he was blocking the sunshine, right? And the
I love
sunshine
that.
I look at as the creator of all that is, the light in our lives,
Mm,
right? So if you're blocking the light from coming into your life, nothing is going to grow. So you've got to be willing to actually stand up, say, I did my part, I'm putting it in the ground, and I'm going to walk away, right? And
mm,
let the light in, let the creator in, let the sun in to contribute to you and to give you what you're asking for. That's the virtue of letting go for me, right? It's not something where you're like, oh, I'm going to do this to be some saintly holy person. Hell no. It's to get what you want. And if we got that it's to get what we want, we would do it all the time, right?
wow, this is awesome. Yes. This is really amazing. Yeah. And it reminds me of that watched pot never boils thing too. Um,
Yes,
I
exactly.
was thinking about that yesterday as I was watching my water boil. Like, come on. And then sure enough, without fail, if I leave the room, I come back, it's like it's already boiled and done. I'm like, I
Yeah,
missed it.
totally.
There's yeah, I'm really curious what's resonating for everyone who's listening. I can tell you all are listening. I can feel you listening, but I'd love
Yeah,
for
me
you to
too.
comment on what is actually landing for you, what's resonating for you in this, or if there's something that you're struggling with letting go of.
Yeah.
This is your opportunity. consider that the universe, if you're here, is giving you an opportunity to let go. Well,
Yeah.
that's maybe why you're here. So, and what is the payoff of holding on to it?
Right.
That's the one thing we haven't talked about yet. Like, what do you get to be right about from holding on to it? For me, it was
Oof.
being a victim.
Yeah.
You know, I get to be right that I'm a victim. I get to have these complaints. I get to have something to feel self-righteous about. I get to have something to be mad at. I get to have
Right.
something to beat myself up for or depression for, right? So,
And
where
let's
are
be
the
honest,
things?
it feels good,
Yeah,
Ben. It feels good. It feels good. Just acknowledge it. We acknowledge it. We have to acknowledge it. You know, it feels good. It feels good for that moment to be like, wow, somebody's listening to me, you know? And then
yeah.
it becomes we become those people who are like, yeah, well, uh, everybody wants you to shut up. You know, you
Oh wow.
how many times have we been around that person that tells the same story over and over and over and over, right?
It's like a good comic. They know it's effective. It gets a response, so they keep telling
Right.
it to get a response,
It gets
right?
a response, it gets attention, right? It
And it
makes us feel
reminds me,
heard.
yeah. And it reminds me, I mean, this is a great example. I'm walking around like every day with a cast on my arm. So it's
Huh?
like the opportunity to think about like the very thing I came to you or in our first healing session, like choosing to no longer be injured, to be like closer to my father who was injured a lot, or
Right.
just because I'm tired of being injured, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
could I want
Exactly.
to see if there any part of myself that gets payoff from
Yeah.
this, like that's
Exactly.
subconsciously choosing this. Someone asked me, so why'd you want to break your wrist?
I love that.
And I was like, well, like, my ego was like, well, F
Yeah.
you, man. And then
Yeah.
something else, he said, no, no, I just like to ask these questions. Like, why do you think you wanted to break your wrist?
Right.
Wow. Um,
The really, really amazing awareness, you know? We
yeah,
don't take a
yeah.
second to recognize that. You know, also Gary, speaking of Gary Douglas, you know, Gary always talks about how everything is just a choice. And everybody goes, but what about this? And what about that? And I didn't choose cancer and I didn't choose death and I didn't choose to lose my wife and I didn't choose this and I didn't choose that. And, you know, Gary always gives people the space to ask, well, if you did, what would be the reason why you would have chosen that? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't often give ourselves a permission to change it. We like to stay in the place of, oh my God, this happened. For me, I don't know. I
I
don't
think
mean
it's
it in a
familiar. I think where you like to stay in the place of the familiar is what you're pointing to.
yeah, yes,
It's what's
absolutely,
familiar.
Ben.
If beating yourself up is familiar, if being in pain is familiar, if being a victim is familiar. In Dude School this coming week, we're going to be talking about the drama triangle or the victim triangle. In
Right,
every dysfunctional relationship, there's always a victim, a persecutor, and a rescuer, or the hero. So if we
right.
can start to bring that awareness, then maybe we can start to get out of those things that we hold on to. It's programmed, it's familiar. And I find the only way that we can start to program that, like one gentleman said, well, if my if my sex life is fucked, like how do I, like, what's the baseline? Well, our programming is such that we may not know what normal is, but we can start to check in with our heart and
Yes,
see, like, what's
absolutely.
important to us. Do I really want to treat myself this way?
Yeah,
What would be possible if I could be loved? And also for me, it was like, if I'm seeking validation from anywhere external that's not spiritual or not like a friend, like it is, it's usually an opportunity for me to love myself and learn how to do
correct.
that. And so I think wherever we are, the opportunity here I see is to learn to love ourselves a little bit more, to learn to be
Absolutely.
kind, to learn to start a new programming. Like, if I was my father right now, this is a great way. If imagine yourself as a little child right now, and if you were to parent yourself, and you were looking at yourself as, like, let's say a 16-year-old, because they're like going through adolescence, they're kind of becoming adults and they're struggling with that thing. Like, what
Yeah.
advice would you give if you were 16 right now, which, let's face it, emotionally, most of us are much closer to that age than our actual, if we were in that age, like, what
Exactly.
would you
It's kind
say
of
to
true.
yourself? Like, would you
Right.
say like, oh yeah, keep being depressed, you're a piece of shit, or would you say like, dude, you're incredible. You have no idea what's possible out there. This one person may be a very painful source in your life, but it doesn't have to be forever. You actually get to have a choice. Even when we choose partners and marriages fail and we feel like we're going to die if a
Yeah.
relationship ends, that's what I felt like. I find that the choice is, all the abundance in the world that we haven't been really allowing ourselves to receive. We've been making ourselves so small. Like, we can only
Right.
be happy in this relationship, in this circumstance. And if that circumstance doesn't work, then our whole life is screwed.
Right.
So where have we already, I hate to use the word kill off, but where have we where have we closed the door to possibilities that, really could help us? Like, where have we just closed off solution and medicine and all the people who want to help us? When I was
Right.
alone this week without my wife here and struggling with surgery and pain and not being able to help myself, the opportunity for me was to practice asking my friends for help, because they wanted to help. They felt like, they're like, dude, you're like hurting and we can't help you. Like, I
Right.
really want to help you. So it gave them an opportunity to be of help. And then it gave me an opportunity to practice receiving, which is uncomfortable for me. So
Of
it can
course.
be, for sure. Somebody
I
brings me a
wonder.
bunch of food, I'm like, oh, how much do I
Yeah.
owe you? Like, why don't I just say like, wow, thank
Thank
you?
you. Yeah. I'd like to also point out too, to the degree that we have those, most of us, I think most everybody can agree that that we've also had a opportunity or a space in our life where we went through something and we let go of something really hard, and then on the other side of it was something amazing, right?
Mm,
What if you
mm,
remembered that whatever you're going through, something amazing exists on the other side, right? If you could actually tap into the memory of that, the cells in your body will go, okay, you know what? I've done this before. I am safe. And I wonder what could possibly be on the other side. When I was going through my divorce, I was like, I don't want anything. I want to be single. I don't want to be in a relationship. This is, not for me. I'm an only child. I can take care of myself. I'm independent. And I met the love of my life like literally weeks later,
that's,
out of nowhere. And not because I was looking for it, because it showed up as a like on Instagram. You know what I mean?
and
And
well, was it out of nowhere? I don't know. It sounds like you actually let go of something.
yeah, of course. That's what I mean. I mean, I really, really let go of the fact um, that I let go of a lot of the preconceived ideas, the lies that I told myself about what a relationship is, right?
Mm,
And I
mm,
allowed myself
mhm.
to actually ask for what I wanted.
Wow.
I thought I had to prescribe to this thing of what marriage was or what relationship was that everybody else was telling me that it had to be,
Wow.
and that was what was really, I was trying to fit, what did they say, square peg round hole, like that was me. I was the square peg, and I was like, wow, this is really not working. This is really, really, really not working. And yes, I take full responsibility for my my co-creation of it, but what could I choose that would be something different, you know
Mm. Wow,
and i
that's
i
great.
think i think also too, it taught me that even in my present partnership, um my present partnership, I also say, wow, what am I, some of the old patterns that are from the past, some of those old things that are from the past that pop up, and I go, oh wait, why am I choosing that again? That's an
Mm,
old version of me,
mm,
right? What would this new version of me choose? What would the version of me who is where I am now and all of the things that I've learned, like what would I choose now? You know?
mm. It's a great question. I
Amazing,
love that.
amazing stuff today, Benjamin. Amazing
This is
stuff today.
beautiful.
I love it. I love it. We're onto something here.
Yes, we are. And if you're listening, I just want to remind you to please subscribe and comment. Let us know what's landing. Those things make a huge difference. We do this for you and with you. So
Yeah.
thank you so
Yeah.
much for
Thank you
being part of
guys.
this conversation. Daniel, this is incredible. Thank you. Man, I was having like a weird funky day today. It's really gray here.
Yeah.
Um I don't know, my energy felt off. I even, I did your meditation, everything. I still felt weird afterwards. And I was
Yeah.
like, Ben, and this is where integrity comes in. I said, just show up for this thing that you care about
Yeah.
and it's all going to be better. Like I played the tape forward, like remembering myself at the end of each of our episodes and how good I feel. And
Aw.
so I just want to say that like it was really, I think I'm just still frustrated with having like one good arm right now. I'm not
Yeah.
fully in acceptance, if I'm being really honest. And so
That's okay.
um I was a little frustrated, like
Yeah.
doing everything. And then it was like, man, if I create the setting, the circumstances
Uh-huh.
for success, like if we just set up like a weekly meeting or something with someone you care about that you really
Yeah.
love and trust that the universe is going to handle everything else. Like
Yeah.
for every project I have in my life, the way I do it is I have one meeting a week for that project. So I have like 8 different meetings every week at a same time, at a repeating time, but they're all for different things. And then I don't have to think about it the rest of the week. So it's really compartmentalized. I can stay really present and just be in my calendar. And so this
Yeah.
is one of those things that we hold space, every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. I can
Right.
count on that I'm going to get to be in this dance with you. And it's vulnerable and it's beautiful. And I just want to say thank you for continuing to dance with me, and for everyone out there is dancing with
Oh,
this.
you're giving me all the feels today, Benjamin.
Well, I love you.
Thank you. I love you too, and I'm so grateful for the space too. And I listen to you because I know you all. Obviously, I know you personally too, and you have a really wonderful system of structure and all that kind of stuff. And here you go. I have these meetings for this thing, la la la, and I go, oh, I hate meetings. I can't stand meetings. I can't stand these like structured things that he's giving to me. And I realize that's something from my past, right? Like I realize that's the adolescent or the young kid who failed. I failed so many classes in school. Like I had to go to
Mm.
summer school every year because I just hated school, you know?
The structure
And
wasn't working. We
the
learned
structure did
differently.
not work for me. I know my teachers thought I was stupid because I wasn't getting anything. And
That sounds
thank God
really
I have,
frustrating.
it was so frustrating. And you know what? Thank God I have such a thick skin. I never let it get to me, you know? But I also realize in my
Yet it's
revenge
come
of
up
that,
30 years later.
yeah, it's coming up 30 years later. Exactly. In my revenge of it, I still do that thing where I go, I fucking hate meetings. I'm not doing your meeting, or I'm not doing your homework. Anytime anybody gives me homework, I go, good luck, you know?
That's
So I have
interesting
some,
point of view, Daniel.
I know. I realized today I have a lot of things I have to work on.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to tell you, I don't love meetings. I just have trained myself, I've programmed myself to keep showing up because despite what
Yeah.
my brain tells me, like
Yeah.
afterwards, I'm always like, oh, that's really good. I did that. I'm really glad we had this meeting. That's
Really
usually
love
the
me.
sentence that always comes out. I'm like, my God, thank God I spoke to this human. And
Yep.
that's comes up every time. So thank you
Yeah.
for being you. Thank you for everyone who's listening. And we'll see
Yeah.
you at
Thank
the
you
same time,
all.
same place next week.
Yes. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jason, for your continued loyalty, your support, and your amazing energy. And thank you to everyone.
Yes.